Good morning. It's good to see you here on this beautiful day. My name is Cindy Robertson, and I'm a member here at First Unitarian. It is my pleasure to welcome you to First Unitarian Society of Denver. We are an urban sanctuary for growing souls in love and service. For more than 140 years, we have been and continue to be a cornerstone of liberal religion and justice in Denver. No matter who you love, you are welcome here. Whether this is your first time in this space or the 100th, you are welcome here. Whether you walk through these doors with your head held high with joy in your heart, or approached with fear, hurt, or uncertainty, you are welcome here. If you're a believer, a skeptic, you don't know, it's complicated, you are welcome here. We look forward to getting to know you better and hope you find companions for your journey. Please silence your mobile devices in this gathering space. We also encourage you to take note of the exits from the sanctuary. There's one over here and there. If you have a child or you know someone that needs to be quiet and in a creative space, you're invited to our play area over here. It's good for you to be here. It's good to be here with you. Let us worship together. Go ahead. No, I'm gonna. Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do the welcome song. That's fine. That's great. Let's do it. Stand, please, and we'll look each other in the eye and say a kind greeting that you've joined us today. We are very glad you're here. We are many, we are one. The light of the world is within you. Sacred and worthy is your soul. A place has been made for you. I'm wearing many hats today, so you can be seated and we'll do our call to worship. Recently, biologists have noted that more crows have been getting killed by vehicles on major trucking highways than on normal roads. After tire print and impact analysis, they determined that these crows are being killed by large trucks, not cars. One especially bright scientist came up with the hypothesis that these crows are always post a sentry, so that they know that there's a car coming. And when they're eating the roadkill, they'll understand that there's traffic approaching. The problem lies neither in the sentry nor in the larger body of crows, but in miscommunication. The crows have learned to say caw, caw, but they've not learned to say truck, truck. The crows start every morning in our neighborhood cawing to their friends and family their plan for the day. They end the day the same way, lighting on large trees in apartment buildings around our home to yell at one another and tell them their plan for the evening. At times there are so many birds and so much communication, we have to raise our voices to talk over them. Crows seem to communicate fairly well. They keep their society well organized, and their ability to communicate with seemingly one sound. We as humans could learn from the crows. Most of our problems in relationships and in the workplace are a result of poorly communicated expectations. We think another should be able to figure out what we're thinking. We expect a fellow worker to know what we know. We have problems in our relationships because we don't communicate our feelings and expectations well. Good communication results in better relationships and better functioning workplaces. We all need to work on our communication skills and learn to fly. We have the potential to be as good a communicator as a crow.
Thank you. Good morning. It was so peaceful. I'm Erin Kenworthy, and I'm your Director of Religious Exploration. This morning I'm going to start at a Disney movie and end in a completely different place, so just stay with me on the journey. Recently, actress and singer Pat Carroll passed away, and she was the voice of Ursula the Sea Witch in the Disney movie The Little Mermaid. Have you seen it? Are you familiar? Ursula is my favorite Disney witch. She's my favorite, in part because she taught me that communication isn't just our words, but also our body language. And her voice also reminded me of my elementary music teacher, Miss Lewis, who was really tough, but also very fair. And she wanted all of us to love music, and I did because of her. So thanks to Pat Carroll and Miss Lewis and many other teachers in my life, I've come to understand that body language is essential to understanding one another when we communicate. And I love to dance, which is all about body language. Some favorite moves are the right? You know what I mean. So in preparation for this morning, I read a story by an American young woman named Elizabeth Kelly, who left America and went to teach in Bulgaria. And I've never been there, so I'm going to believe what she says in her story. But did you know that in Bulgaria, a shake of the head by a Bulgarian means yes, and a nod, which the rest of the world does for yes, means no? Body language, right? Communication, how confusing that can be when two cultures that are different meet each other and have different meanings for the same kind of gestures. So when Ms. Kelly began teaching, she shares that all of the head bobbing made communication in the classroom really interesting. Although I had made sure my students knew about this cultural difference on the first day of school, we all frequently forgot what we were doing. My students would answer a question correctly or say something really great, and I'd nod. And a second later, they were trying to change their answer since they thought the nod meant they had been wrong. But the confusion went both ways. Sometimes I'd ask a student a yes or no question, and he or she would answer with a nod or a shake without saying anything, and not remembering the difference. We'd have to go through the motions several times before I understood. Frequently, I found myself just saying out loud, "Da or nay, just tell me one or the other." She continues to say, "I've come to understand the importance of using all my senses in a different culture than my own, and not making assumptions that a gesture or other form of communication means the same thing everywhere. I must make sure I'm really listening and watching for clues when someone is communicating with me. In Bulgaria, the sound, kind of like a cluck of the tongue, often accompanies a no, and being aware of that helped her steer clear of confusion. Tuning into how the people around us communicate can bring us closer to the people and the cultures that are coming together. And whenever we slip up and forget to control our heads, the laughter that follows brings us together. And luckily, as far as I am aware, a smile is a smile all over the world." We communicate all the time without words. So this week, pay attention and try some of these things to notice body language. You can watch a foreign language TV channel or movie. You can observe others talking and notice the gestures they use and what they mean. You can pay close attention to the facial expressions of friends and family, because every person has a different face language. We can also listen with our ears and our eyes. Being a good listener is another way to be a great communicator. So try using one of the following listening skills in a conversation with a friend or family member and observe their reaction. Try to maintain eye contact with the speaker. Think about the information you're hearing and let the speaker talk without interruption. Ask good questions at the right time without interrupting. Repeat back in your own words important information the speaker has shared. Save your own personal stories until after you've responded to what the speaker wants to tell you. and then encourage the speaker with body language like smiling and nodding your head, which some of you are already really good at doing because you've been doing it while I've been up here. Please continue that for the rest of the service. And as I leave, please join me in singing our children out to story time in the chapel. Well, we will continue to practice our body language and communication skills together while you remain down here. Thank you so much.
We hold you in our love as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go. Please join me in singing hymn 346 in your gray hymnal. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Hi, I'm Tina Proctor with the Giving and Action Committee. And our committee was talking quite a bit this summer about organizations that provide abortion support, since we had the Roe versus Wade decision that came out in June. And especially for people who are traveling to Colorado for safe abortions that they can't get in their home states. So we have want to present you with the Colorado Doula Project. And their mission is to provide access to non-judgmental, compassionate, and empowering doula support for individuals across the full spectrum of their reproductive experiences, with a specific focus on abortion. And I'd like to introduce the founder and director, Gina Martinez.
Good morning. I'm Gina Martinez, and I'm the director of the Colorado Doula Project. We're based here in Denver, and we started out in Boulder and kind of expanded from there. We are an abortion fund and what's called a practical support organization, which means that we provide financial support for people who are getting an abortion, but we also provide wide variety of like the logistical and practical needs for people who are coming here to access abortion. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that means. So a lot of you are probably familiar with what an abortion fund is. It's right there in the name. So we do a lot of funding of people's abortions, both people who are residents of Colorado and then people who are coming to our state. And that practical support can look like transportation. A big part of what we do is picking people up from the airport when they fly in from another state and bringing them to their hotel for however long they're staying, and then getting them back again at the end of the week. We also do transportation to and from appointments, and we train people to provide companionship and emotional support during their abortion in clinics where they can bring a companion, and sometimes over text and phone outside of their clinic appointment. We provide gas money, groceries, just money for food, money for childcare, kind of everything you can think of that someone might need in order to get here to access the abortion that they have an appointment for. And I think that practical support is something that's a little less well known than the direct abortion funding aspect. But in my experience, it's just as important, because if you are in Louisiana and the National Network of Abortion Funds has been able to cover your abortion, but you can't get there, then that coverage is essentially meaningless. So abortion funds and PSOs and organizations like ours that are both are really crucial in making sure that the legality that's here, that we're not just lucky to have, but that so many people worked really hard for, the recent passing of the Reproductive Health Equity Act that we have in Colorado. So that access and that funding for the abortion is not just meaningless. So we can make sure that people can get here. And, you know, I think since Roe fell, that was the most dramatic turn that we saw, but we've been seeing an increase since SB 8 passed in Texas, and we are situated in a really crucial spot in Colorado. We have people coming from really all over, mostly from the eastern, southern states, and the Midwest. And we have a lot of mothers coming here. We have a lot of mothers driving long distances from Texas, from Oklahoma, from Louisiana, Alabama, all over just to get the care that they need. And the feedback that we get from these people is how much of a difference it makes to the trajectory of a person's life when they are able to decide privately for themselves when and if they want to parent. And that intersects with our focus on racial justice and a lot of the numbers that we know about maternal mortality for Black women in the US. It connects to class and work issues for parents who really cannot afford to have another child. And also hopefully getting people the access that they need sooner rather than later, because most of the people that come to us have known for weeks that this is a decision that they wanted to make, but when they live in a banned state, it takes a lot of time for them to be able to access that. So I hope that gave a little bit of a picture of what we do and the kind of support that we provide. And I'm really grateful to be able to talk about our work and maybe after the service to get a chance to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you could come visit us, Gina. And we also have Alyssa Turnbull, who's the marketing director here too. And just as a reminder, you can put money in the basket this morning, or later you can go on to your Breeze account and donate funds that way. And if you're at home, you can do that as well. You can go on to our website also and look for funding. Okay, thank you.
Your gifts, freely given, are gratefully received. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, First Unitarian. Good morning. I love it when you say good morning back. My name is Nathaniel Clark. I am a second-year Unitarian Universalist student at Iliff School of Theology, and Reverend Mike was kind enough to invite me up to the pulpit this morning. So now I'd like to ask you all to join me, if you would, in the spirit of prayer, meditation, quiet reflection, whatever it is you do that is honest and heartfelt. By way of a pastoral prayer, I'd like to share a poem from Rainer Maria Rilke. It's called Change. Want the change. Be inspired by the flame where everything shines as it disappears. The artist, when sketching, loves nothing so much as the curve of the body as it turns away. What locks itself in sameness has congealed. Is it safer to be gray and numb? What turns hard becomes rigid and is easily shattered. Pour yourself out like a fountain. Flow into the knowledge that what you are seeking finishes often at the start, and with ending begins. Every happiness is the child of a separation it did not think it could survive. And Daphne, becoming a laurel, dares you to become the wind. Okay, before I get going, I think we can all extend our heartfelt thanks to Rebecca Mullaney, our pianist. The music has been stunning and very soothing on my first time preaching up here. Let me tell you a story. It's a cool day in late 2020. I'm out for a walk with my fiancée Laura when my phone rings. My brother's name comes up on the screen. My brother and I have a somewhat shaky history of phone conversations, with about 70% remaining civil. So before I pick up, Laura and I have one of those eye contact conversations and nod. We have just exchanged greetings when my brother blurts out, "Hey, so what's a dead name?" I didn't think he knew that word. I stall and ask, "Why do you need to know?" "Because what's-her-face is yelling at Mom about your dead name." My mother named me Nathaniel, but that's not the first name I had. Nathaniel is a gift she gave to me when I was 20, and I told her that I wanted to be her son instead of her daughter. I don't use my old name anymore, but I've never used the word dead name around my family. It never occurred to me that they would encounter it on their own. My brother goes on to explain that our mom was having dinner with an old friend of hers and told a story about me when I was a kid. She used my old name to talk about me as a child because that was my name when the story took place. In comes the 20-something daughter of my mom's friend, and she snaps at both of our mothers for dead naming me. And this was the first time my mother had ever heard that term. My mom mentions this to my brother, so my brother, feeling protective of our mom, was now calling me to get confirmation that the 20-something daughter was being a meanie head for no reason. I don't talk about being transgender in most contexts. Everybody in my seminary cohort knows, and all of my close friends and family know, but for the most part it's something I keep private. None of my coworkers since 2018 have had any idea. New friends I make go through a vetting process before I tell them. Of course, I've never mentioned it here at church. I'm not even a little bit ashamed of being trans. I love who I am. I love my name, I love my body, I love just existing at home with the person I love most, and forgetting that anyone might think there's something odd about our life together. The reason I don't always talk about my trans history is that when I do, it tends to introduce a language barrier. Anyone who has ever learned a language knows that you don't start by having complex conversations. You start by learning a small handful of common words, maybe practicing your pronunciation to get the feel of it, and then eventually you get to sentences and realize that you weren't even using those first couple words correctly because context changes how the words work, but your teacher didn't tell you that because they didn't want to scare you off too soon. I am fluent in trans talk. I can chat about passing or stealthing or cracking your egg or boy moding or dead naming or clocking your tea all day long. The inside jokes that circulate among queer millennials are my mother tongue. Most people in the world are not fluent in trans talk. Most people have only recently started learning, and they're still figuring out how those first few words work in context. Despite the very best of intentions, new friends that I tell about myself don't know how to talk about my transition without saying something that sounds a little off to a practiced ear. If I want to tell someone about who I am, first I need to prepare myself to have a conversation, or more often a lot of conversations, with someone who doesn't speak the language very well yet. To complicate matters, I don't talk about being transgender the way an educational website will teach you to. To be human is to deal in puns and innuendos and obscure references. So new learners who hear me talk about myself the way I am naturally inclined to do will usually walk away feeling kind of confused. I talk about being trans the way I talk about everything else, which is to say, in a way that has never made a ton of sense to my family. Because I am fluent in trans topics, I know that the young woman who snapped at my mom was rude, but technically correct. The word dead name refers to any name that a transgender person has stopped using for themselves. You're never supposed to say a person's dead name, even if you knew them by that name before, because use of the old name typically indicates a rejection of that person's identity. Proper etiquette is to use the person's current name retroactively. So you would say, when Nathaniel was a little kid, he used to eat the leaves off of trees because he thought it was the same thing as lettuce. And that is true. The term dead name also speaks to the lived experience of many trans people who, in the eyes of their families of origin, died when they came out. I have never used the word dead name around my family because it took a while to convince them that my transition was not the death of someone they loved. And I don't want to undo any of that progress for the sake of a vocabulary lesson. I would have preferred to save that lesson for some time down the road when we're all a little closer to being on the same page. But my brother has learned about dead naming anyway, and right now, while we're talking on the phone, his only context for this new piece of vocabulary is that someone used it to hurt his mother's feelings. It is far from an ideal learning opportunity. If I launch into an explanation of the term and its history, it sounds like I'm taking the side of an acquaintance over my own mother, and that is definitely not going to put my brother in the mood for some deep listening and reflection. If I brush off the question and tell him that I don't use that word and give no explanation as to why, he's probably going to walk away thinking that dead naming is a made-up word that young people use to feel persecuted and self-righteous, and I will have betrayed the dignity of my own people. This is not the first time I've tried to explain some aspect of my life to my brother under less than ideal circumstances. Doesn't always end well. We've hung up on each other, stormed out of rooms, ruined the mood of many pleasant evenings. We've never really known how to talk to each other. My brother likes things to be simple. He wants to learn by doing, and he hates being lectured. I do not excel at making things simple, and I talk a lot when I get going. The flurry of new words that my transition brought exacerbated a language barrier that was already there. All the same, neither one of us has ever stopped trying. There are people that I really can't talk to. To some people, my life is emblematic of something to which they are diametrically opposed. That's not a language barrier. That is a closed door. I can't make someone do something they don't want to do, and if someone has no interest in acknowledging my humanity, then that's the end of the road until they change their mind. My brother is not one of those people. He does not hate trans people. He doesn't think we're something other than human beings worthy of respect. He doesn't always get what's going on, but he's trying. He heard a new word that someone used to scold his mom, and he didn't make up his mind right away. He called me to ask me a question because he is trying to learn. That matters. That's why we still have a relationship. When he tries to learn new things for me, it's all the proof I need that he loves me, even when it's hard. Our conversation on the phone doesn't go entirely smoothly. I try to tell him what a dead name is without getting too deep into the weeds. He thinks it's overkill and it sounds like someone is dead. He's still mad that the young woman yelling at our mom thinks she knows more about me than our family does, And I don't have the wherewithal to explain that in this particular case, she kind of does. I try to tell him about why the word dead name makes a lot of sense for other trans people, because a lot of other trans people are either dead to their families or worse, actually dead and only remembered by a name that wasn't theirs. And then my brother surprises me. He says one of the rarest phrases ever uttered by human beings. My brother says, "That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that." I don't talk about being transgender in a lot of contexts because communicating across a language barrier is hard, and I don't always have the energy to navigate those conversations with tact. I know I'm very lucky, though, because almost everyone I have ever come out to wants to try if I give them a chance. However unfamiliar they are with people like me, they still want to be kind to me. If you spend a lot of time on the internet or watching the news, I think it's easy to get the impression that the world is full of enemies. Bad faith actors often conceal their agendas by claiming that they're just confused, that they simply cannot understand why other people might live their lives differently. There's a lot of money to be made by reassuring people that they don't need to do the hard work of learning about someone else. On the other side, there's also a lot of money to be made by selling the image of an ignorant straw man that can safely be disregarded and left behind. You don't need to do the hard work of educating someone if you're already sure they can't learn. We are not encouraged to see each other as we actually are, as tangled masses of inherited biases and dubious information and good intentions. When I first came out as trans, I was 20 and I was terrified. I thought that if I let anyone see that I was scared and overwhelmed, they would try to stop me from transitioning. So I did what 20-year-olds do best, and I acted like I already knew everything. To fuel the act, I spent hours digging through whatever information I could find online, which means that I sorted through hundreds of pages of content, calling trans people perverts, groomers, predators, cultists, delusional ideologues, fringe radicals bent on destroying the American family, and plenty of other things you can probably imagine. A lot of that stuff was written by far-right conservative commentators, but a lot of it came from places I wasn't expecting. It also came from feminists and gay people and school guidance counselors, people that I had expected to be on my side. It's very easy for this kind of environment to make you defensive. I spent a long time with my guard up 24/7, and that made it a lot harder to talk to the people who love me. People would ask me a question and I would hear an accusation. I would try to explain something important to me, and I'm pretty sure my family heard fast, agitated gibberish. I don't begrudge myself the part I played in our collective incomprehension. I don't begrudge my family their learning process either. I was young and scared and trying my best. My family were trying their best too, to understand what was going on with me with even less reputable information to work with. None of us really did anything wrong. It was just hard. We weren't speaking the same language to each other. My brother calls this time period our growing pains. It definitely sucked, but we all kept doing our best, and it got better. There is a unique grace that arises between people who make an honest effort to understand each other. Reaching across the chasm of confusion to reach another human being on the other side is exhausting. It is frustrating. It is often painful. And underneath all of those things that are true, there is a love that says, "You are worth this to me." The people who learn for us are the ones who have proven that they love us through the hard parts. They love us when love means work. And when we do the same and push through the growing pains to learn for someone else, we prove that love is more powerful than ignorance. If we are willing and able to put in the effort, we do not have to be driven apart from each other. In point of fact, under the right circumstances, every single language on earth has been learned by adults who started from scratch. There are no two people on this planet who are so different that they cannot find a way to communicate with each other if they both want to. And talking to each other is the first crucial step to accomplishing things together. If you take a look at the Bible, I know we don't always do that here, but you could. If you look in the Bible at the beginning of that Tower of Babel story, it says that God looked down on all the people working together and speaking to one another in a language that they all understood, and the Almighty got nervous. God said, "Look, they are one people and they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do now will be impossible for them." In the interim, while we are still learning and still struggling to be understood, I think it's worthwhile to make the most of the things we do know how to say. My family and I do not always know how to have an in-depth conversation, but we know how to say that we love each other. Personally, I think, if all you know how to tell someone is that you love them, that's a really good start.
Please rise if you're willing and able and join me in singing 10:008 from the Teal hymnal, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place." When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear a voice in the other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of its sacred space, and our God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. I want to invite you all to coffee hour, which is going to be outside after the service today. And thank you very much, Nathaniel, for gracing our sanctuary today, and Rebecca for playing. It's been wonderful. Thank you all. Let's join together in the closing affirmation. Behind all our differences and beneath our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one, binds us forever together throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars, throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars.
Zora Neale Hurston wrote, "Love is what makes your soul crawl out of its hiding place." May it be so for all of us. Our service has ended. Go in peace and be a blessing to this world.